Darning is a really great way to repair any kind of missing material on a knit surface, including socks or sweaters. It's really straightforward, even if it looks super intimidating, so I'm really excited for you to be joining us for this quick little tutorial. First things first is you want to grab some kind of a hard object that can fit inside of your sock or fit inside of your sweater. This is a darning egg, but basically any kind of household object that's rigid and fits inside your sock or sweater is going to work great. This helps you keep an even tension when sewing and avoid sewing the two layers together. Next, you'll grab some yarn that's a similar thickness to the yarn in your garment and is a color that matches your preference for visible or invisible mending. Darning is essentially creating a tiny loom around the hole that you want to repair and weaving in new picks of yarn to rebuild that missing material. So after this first step, I'm going to have a rectangle of all of these yarns that are stitched going in one direction. And so these are going to be the warp yarns, which basically create a framework for us to add horizontal yarns or weft yarns later on. And we'll do that by basically imagining a square around our hole, and we'll only stitch through the material that's structurally sound. So make sure you've got a buffer of about at least 1/8 of an inch around the edges of your hole, because if you get too close to that edge, it's going to fray and unravel even more. Okay, so now we have all of our vertical yarns ready to go, and we're going to start adding the horizontal yarns. And basically, this is just weaving on a very tiny scale. And weaving in its most basic form is just going over, under all these vertical yarns. So you'll go through all of the yarns that you have in your little rectangle. And I place my thumb there because that helps me keep that yarn as close as possible to the edge. And then you insert your needle into the main body of the fabric you're trying to repair, just a yarn width over, and then you add another horizontal yarn, but you do the opposite of what you did in the last pick. So this time it might be under, over, under, over, under, over. And you don't have to hold all of those on your needle all at once. I'm just doing it for speed purposes, but I'm also going to position my finger again as I'm pulling that yarn through. It just creates kind of a channel and helps you get those horizontal yarns packed closely. The more densely packed your darning is, the longer it's going to last. Same as before, you insert your needle into the material a yarn's width down and add yet another horizontal pick, and you'll just keep going just like that, alternating the pattern of your weaving if it's over under or under over with every new horizontal yarn until the entire rectangle is full. Once you're done, you're going to slip your needle through to the wrong side of the fabric, take out whatever rigid object you had inside, and then just reach your hand in and you'll pull that yarn all the way through. So now you see we've got our almost finished darning, and we're going to turn that sock inside out and finish weaving in those ends. So you can see we've got these little yarn tails. That red yarn is darning that's probably a year old, so it's held up pretty well. If you're familiar with knitting, a way that you can weave in those ends is by doing a duplicate stitch, which is what I did with the red yarn. But there's a lot of ways to do it that are a bit faster. So I'm just going to copy those purl stitches, get it into focus here. I'll just do a simple duplicate stitch on the wrong side of my knitted material. And then after trimming that end, I'll start on that other tail, which admittedly is a little too short. So learn from my mistake and give yourself a little more wiggle room at the end. But I'll take that yarn off of my needle and I'll insert my needle without any yarn on it in some kind of a secure pattern through the existing material on the back. I'm just trying to make sure that it's not gonna flop around. And then I'll tuck that tiny little tail through the eye as best as possible and finish threading it through. And I just kind of like to do a couple half hitch knots, and that's generally been just fine. Again, these are just suggestions for weaving in your ends. Use whatever method works best for you. And then at the end of this, you'll trim that tail again. Excuse all of the fluffy lint. It looks pretty secure if I just pull on it, so I'm feeling good about this. I'll just clip that off and flip it back right side out so that I can see how it looks from the right side. So I hope you've enjoyed practicing your darning skills today. I know it can be kind of intimidating, but ultimately we at Reg Finery believe it's super satisfying to extend the useful life of your garments and also divert them from the landfill. It's a pretty straightforward skill once you get the hang of it, and is a really awesome opportunity to practice some self-expression on your garments. I really love the darn socks that I have because it feels like every little patch is an extra story, an extra layer added on to the story of this garment. And it looks pretty darn cute. So there you go, all done, ready to wear, nice and cozy again, no more drafty toes. You're all set for winter. Thanks for watching.